bringing you news and information suppressed by the corporate-controlled media. This is Volcano Radio with Richie Allen.
Cynthia Mckinney, how are you? But first of all, where are you?
I am in South Asia at the moment, and I have accepted a teaching position at a local university.
Fantastic. What are you teaching exactly?
I'm teaching politics, and and I'm teaching the students how to become engaged citizens. So hopefully we'll have some young people who will join our ranks as questioners and activists and engaged individuals who will not accept what they see in the mainstream media as the gospel truth.
Fantastic. You know what a coincidence this is. A good friend of mine and somebody you know very well, Norman Finkelstein, is doing the very same thing in Turkey. Would you believe that? This is a great development.
But you know, it also says something about the politics inside the United States, that the best minds and those who are really willing to take a principal position and become leaders on that position are forced out of the country.
Are forced to get out of the country in order to be heard. Yeah, we've spoken at length on this new program about that, in order to get a voice. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I would love to have the opportunity to speak on your show with Finkelstein, and maybe one day we can go back to the U.S. I intend to go back very soon, but maybe he can join me there, and we can do the movement there, because at the end of the day, you know, everything that's happening in the world, and we decry the militarism, but the bottom line is it's being exported by our own country. And we have no choice if we want to save the rest of the world and save the people inside the United States. We have to be inside the United States. We have to engage in the belly of the beast.
I've often spoken to people on this show and on other shows. You always come up. I always give you a mention, because people ask me, Richie, why are you so fed up of democracy? Why do you believe democracy doesn't work? And I talk to them about what happened to you, Cynthia. And there's nobody better to describe what happened to you, the lengths that the Republican Party went to try and prevent you from being re-elected again and again in Georgia. And, you know, I talked to them about your questioning of Donald Rumsfeld and the missing trillions in the Pentagon. And do you want to talk to me for a couple of minutes about the lengths they went to try and silence you when you were a congresswoman?
Well, you know, here's the thing that actually demonstrates the bankruptcy of the political system in total in the United States, because it wasn't just the Republicans, it was the Democrats as well. I was elected as a Democrat. I served as a Democrat. And when I saw things that the Democrats were doing, I called it. And in the end, on my election night, I had to say that the Republicans wanted to beat me more than the Democrats wanted to keep me. And that was the predicament that I was in when I had members of my own party going around trying to find people to run against me. And that's exactly what happened. Rahm Emanuel, who is now the mayor of Chicago, said that I was not a quote unquote team player. Well, how can I be a team player when the party that I represent, the party that boasts the championing the little guy, ends up brokering deals with the big boys and at the expense of the little guy, the guy that they're depending on to vote for them and keep them in power.
You were devastating to them, because more than any other politician, you demonstrated that there is nothing between these parties at all. We see it in the United Kingdom. You know, you can go around now in the UK, Cynthia, with a billboard, and you can put down an official policy from any manifesto and ask a member of the public to try and decide which party it is, and they wouldn't have a clue, because there are no differences. And of course, you proved it beyond any doubt whatsoever. And this was a huge threat to them because the whole system depends on people believing that there is a choice, and you proved there wasn't.
That's exactly right. And so what we've got to do now, we've got really a machine at work trying to prove to the people of the United States, to the voters that is inside the United States, that Hillary Clinton deserves to be our next president. Well, as far as I'm concerned, she's a war criminal. And she has joined the ranks of our president, now our current Secretary of State, our current Secretary of Defense, and it's not even defense, it's offense, Secretary of Offense. And as war criminals. So we really need to wipe the slate clean of those people who have demonstrated that they are going to be the go along to get along politicians, and really find leadership that is already there, that is already manifested in ways that are principled, and those are the people that the voters have to support.
I want to ask you about something. What do you make, just changing tack just a bit because we haven't got long, I know you're up to your eyes there, in an undisclosed location in Southeast Asia. I love it. I love the whole mystery of it. Now, the Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, has told journalists and has told the world, if they want to listen, that unless he gets an absolute timeline for negotiations for an agreement on a two-state solution, he's going to go and try and seek punishment for the war crimes committed by Israel in the recent carpet bombing, there's no other way to describe it, of Gaza. What do you reckon to that development, Cynthia? And would you be positive? Would you be even optimistic that if the Palestinians did try and go to the UN to claim recompense and justice for what happened in Gaza, that they would actually get any sympathetic ear anyway?
Seeking redress for war crimes that have been committed shouldn't be contingent upon the Israelis declaring a Palestinian state. As far as I'm concerned, war criminals ought to be prosecuted for the crimes that they commit, full stop. And so to hinge his action on whether or not the Israelis come to the table and are willing to negotiate, well, they've been negotiating for 60 years. And look at what negotiations have got the Palestinians. As far as I'm concerned, war criminals of all stripes should be prosecuted, full stop.
But we only go after people like Radan Karadzic. And, I mean, whatever he did or didn't do, let's say he was responsible for killing over 100,000 people. And, of course, if he was, he should face a fair trial, and if convicted, he should be punished. But we're living in the United Kingdom, at least I am anyway, and occasionally a man walks around London by the name of Anthony Blair, who is directly responsible for the deaths of over 1 million Iraqi civilians. And, you know, I scratch my head sometimes, I know you do, you look in the mirror and you think, how can they report on Radovan Karadzic and not ask the question about Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, you mentioned Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, bombing inside Syria? How could that be legal under international law? There's no agreement with the Syrian government. So it's when it suits us, we bring somebody to trial over war crimes, but there are many, many men walking around in the West who have committed atrocities just as bad, maybe worse, who will never be brought to justice. At least I don't think they will anyway.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope that they will be brought to justice. Let's hope that the day comes when wrong is not viewed as right and wrong is punished. These people, the group of people that you've mentioned, have gone against the very ideals of the founding of the United States of America. They have gone against everything that the United States purports to represent in the world. And therefore, they should not be rewarded with positions of authority, huge financial success. They should be in the brig.
In the brig awaiting trial. And we're talking about war crimes. I've been reading the last couple of weeks about the Hannibal Directive, where an Israeli soldier, Colonel Ofer Winter, has admitted to ordering the mass bombing of an area where they believed an Israeli soldier was known. And they wanted to do that to prevent his capture alive by the Palestinians. They basically wanted to terrorise the Palestinians. They were willing to kill their own soldier if it terrified the Palestinians from keeping an Israeli soldier again in the future. I mean, if that's not war crime, Cynthia, admitted by the guy who ordered the attack, what is?
Well, you're absolutely right. And I read that article as well, and I was not surprised, because I have long said that people who are filled with hatred are willing to kill their friends and their colleagues and their compatriots in order to hurt those that they hate. And we're seeing the fruit of this through the new phenomenon of Israeli soldier suicides. Now, we're having this problem in the United States with U.S. soldiers who are committing suicide. And now this is being visited upon the Israeli soldiers, because at the end of the day, there's only so far that hatred can go. And we are all instilled with certain values from birth. And when we act in opposition to those values, we have something that's called a conscience, and our conscience is pricked. These soldiers, that's why you have the phenomenon of the refuseniks and the other soldiers who are refusing to do duty now, because the moment of the most strength occurs when the soldiers themselves say no. And in fact, I often repeat the name of a film that I absolutely love. It's called Sir, No Sir. And it chronicles the story of U.S. soldiers who were stationed in Vietnam who disobeyed their orders, and they said, "Sir, no, sir." And they, through their courageous action, hastened the exit of the United States from Vietnam.
Conscientious objectors. I don't want to pour any pessimism on this, but I was reading davidicke.com/headlines today, and he picked up a piece, did David, from the Palestinian News Network. And they quote a guy called Eyal Eisenberg, who's an Israeli military officer. And he was lecturing in the Institute for National Security Studies at Tel Aviv University in the last few days. And he allegedly said the recent assault on Gaza is not at all similar to the upcoming war that the Israeli army is preparing for. That doesn't sound good, Cynthia.
It doesn't sound good at all. And we know from the Oded Yanon plan, as well as the Clean Break report that was written by the people at Project for a New American Century, that the complete dismantlement of that West Asia region is the prime objective. And the United States military is being used to effectuate that outcome. That is really what is happening. That's why Wesley Clark talked about the United States military going to war against 7 countries in 5 years. And we're seeing it unfold now right before our very eyes.
Are you optimistic, finally, before you get back to work there, are you optimistic that the advent of news programs like the one we're presenting, which is going out on davidicke.com, it's going out on Fab Radio International and on Volcania, it's going out all over the place, and we're beginning. There are other great men and women who are doing this a lot longer than I am. Are we making a difference, Cynthia, or are we talking to ourselves? Are we reaching people?
I think we're reaching people because people are, the more people hear, even if they're just, switching the dial or whatever, or clicking around with their mouse, and they stumble upon your show, and then they listen to a few shows that are in the archives, and then it starts them to thinking, and then all of a sudden, I'm getting a lot of communication from folk who are telling me that they really misjudged me. They believed the media about me. They thought I was this loose, angry black woman who was filled with hatred. And they have rethought all of that after they heard me on shows like yours. So no, we're not just talking to each other and talking to ourselves. You guys are making a difference, and you need to keep on doing it.
Now, you're a Georgia girl, and I know Georgia folk very well, and they love their food, and there's a particular type of cuisine that you would have been used to growing up. How are you getting on with the food in Southeast Asia? Be honest.
Honey, let me tell you, these are the sweetest mangoes I've ever had in my life. The sweetest, tastiest bananas. And, you know, they've got it right. The formula is right. If it's grown from the earth, then it's dirt cheap. And the stuff that's super expensive is the stuff that's processed and, you know, got all the chemical additives and stuff in it. I am eating the purest that I have ever eaten in my life. I love it.
Right, final word, very final word. The people of Oregon, I'm mentioning this every night on the programme, the people of Oregon are going to vote on November the 4th on Measure 92 to make it compulsory for products containing GMOs to be labelled as such. Have you a quick word for the people of Oregon who are going to the ballots on November the 4th?
Well, if they're listening to your show, they already know they need to vote yes for full disclosure, because it was just this issue that led U.S. courts to rule that the media could knowingly lie to the public. And so if the U.S. courts won't protect us, then the voters themselves, we have to protect ourselves.
Cynthia Mckinney, it's always a pleasure. Continued success to you, and I hope your time in Southeast Asia and your teaching goes really well. I have no doubt it will. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Richie.
Wake up and smell the coffee at volcaniainternational.com.